every community needs to step up. This is not a Providence issue or a state issue. This is an everybody's issue.
Housing the homeless are not at the State House, where House Speaker Joe Shekarchi returned to try to tackle that issue and others. He's on with us along with his top lieutenant today.
Well, I like to see to make sure that people that are unhoused have a housing situation where they have the wraparound services that they need, so they can get their life back on track.
Majority Leader Christopher Blazejewski on his priorities for the new session. Both in with me this morning.
Holding the powerful accountable from Washington, D.C. to right here in southern New England. This is 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Gene Valicenti. This is 10 News Conference. Let's get right to our guest. The Democrats running the show on the House side. House Speaker Joe Shekarchi, Democrat Warwick, Majority Leader Christopher Blazejewski is top lieutenant. Well, good morning to both of you. Nice to have you both in.
Good morning. It's great to be here. We like coming on your show.
Well, I appreciate both of you coming in. You've been in before, and it's nice to have you back. The top issue today is the homeless. They're up at the State House, and, Channel 10, I think, kind of pushed this thing forward by showing exactly what's going on up there. Syringes in the benches, and human waste, and garbage, and clothing, and people, and tents. How did this get so far, Speaker? That's where you work.
I don't know how it got this far. I just think it's a big microcosm of the problem we have today, which is we do not have enough affordable housing. That's an issue. Since I became Speaker 2 years ago, it's been my #1 priority. We made historic investments over the last 2 years in housing in general and homelessness. Just this past year, in the budget we passed in July of this year, there was over $10 million directly targeted toward homelessness on top of the $250 million allocation. That's what we did in July. We also gave an allocation in January and another one in December. So within 1 year, the General Assembly has appropriated 3 significant amounts of money to tackle homelessness and affordable housing in general.
All right.
And created a revenue stream also, so it's ongoing as well.
I understand. That's sort of a general term, but it's practically, Majority Leader Blazejewski, the tents popped up weeks and weeks ago. During the debate, I asked the governor about this. How was that allowed to happen? That's not a place for permanent protest.
Look, housing is a human right, Gene, and we in the General Assembly, we've been working on this. We as a society have to work on expanding affordable housing here in Rhode Island at every level. Long-term housing, short-term housing, shelter housing, and in the General Assembly, we appropriate money. That's our job. And over the last 2 years, since Speaker Shekarchi became Speaker, we've worked on that. We've addressed this issue. We created a Pay for Success program in 2021 that still hasn't been instituted yet in the General Assembly through the administration. That program was designed to deal with exactly the issues you find here, to provide the wraparound services that people need to be able to get out of a situation like they're in and get permanent housing so they can get on with their lives.
Now, you both just said a similar thing. You write the check.
Yes.
And it's up to the Housing Secretary, Mr. Saul, to execute. He didn't. What do you want to say about how the job he's doing? There's people popping up on this in the tents at the State House. It was, let me use the word disgusting. It was, because the defecation was there. You saw it, I saw it.
Let me tell you that the housing is a very critical issue, but I know that what's going on in the State House is getting a lot of attention, but there are homelessness people all over Rhode Island.
Okay.
This is not just the State House.
Right.
I mean, all the media is focused on the State House, but it's happening in Warwick, it's happening in other parts of Providence, it's happening all over the state. The city of Warwick has stepped up. We have 2 hotels that are housing homeless people right now. I congratulate Mayor Picozzi and the Warwick City Council. They have been welcomed, and they have been also, the people of Warwick have showed up, given them blankets, brought them clothes. We have done our part. This is an issue that is a statewide issue. It needs to be addressed statewide. Everybody wants housing, but nobody wants housing in their backyard. This is a continuous fight. We're going to try this session in the General Assembly to move forward with a bunch of housing laws to help pass and make it easier to build affordable housing all over Rhode Island.
Everybody wants to do better for the homeless, so we're all in agreement about that. And you spent money. It's not a question of money. You said you spent money.
I'm glad you're saying that, because a lot of people don't feel the General Assembly has done enough. We've done more in the last 2 years than has ever been done before.
Then why are you reluctant to lay out the governor and specifically his housing secretary? If you gave him the money, where's the shelter? Where are the hotel rooms? Where's the plan? And why are they at the State House? Come on, let's call it.
No, when the General Assembly convenes in January, we're going to ask those questions. We're not in session right now. We will be having oversight hearings. We will go through that process, but it's about production. Secretary Stoll has been there for less than 1 year. I want to give him at least a year, and then I'm going to be asking a lot of tough questions. For me, it's about production, production, production. He has known this. We have had conversations with him before. My key policy person and him meet every other week. I want to know what's going on and updates.
Okay.
And I'm going to hold people accountable.
You sound very generous and very diplomatic. Majority Leader Blazejewski, Saul's been here for a year. His job was to make sure that people don't pop up at the State House, get the shelter, get the beds, do what you have to do. He didn't. The administration sent out a deputy chief of staff to admit, yes, we fell short. Now, come on, people are watching this poor State House. It looks really like a homeless camp up there. That's not what it's supposed to be. Would you at least give me that the tents don't belong there?
Well, look, the administration has to do more. We all have to do more, and as a society. And I think in the legislature, we've recognized that. We've been providing the resources to address these issues for years. And I think it's time the administration has to keep pushing to create the shelter beds that we need, the short-term solutions, and also, and this is something the speaker mentioned, the long-term solutions, the affordable housing at every level that we need to make sure that people have a warm, safe, dry place to live so they can work and raise a family in Rhode Island.
If I write the story after this, I'm going to say that both of you said you write the check, you gave the money, and they didn't execute. That's what I'm taking as a newsman. That's what I'm taking
here. Well,
here.
let me ask you this as a newsman. This morning, as we're actually taping
on a Friday,
this segment, a judge issued a restraining order allowing those people to stay, at least in the short term.
Well, what do you make of that legal theory? By the way, you're both attorneys. He's saying they have a First Amendment right to protest at the State House. My tent, I'm sleeping, that's all part of it. Do you agree with that?
Well,
legal theory?
So first of all, let me tell you, it's a very strong constitution. People come to the State House every single day.
Yes.
And they come there to make a statement. Either sometimes they testify, sometimes they wear a shirt, sometimes they're in the gallery, sometimes they clap. And the judge has interpreted, and I don't know who the judge is who's ruled on this, that the form of being there in these tents outside is a form of protest, at least in the short term. So I'm not going to second guess a judge, especially a lawyer who hasn't been involved in the case and don't know the facts or the theories. But what I will tell you, there has to be a balance between health and safety. You cannot go into a theater and say, it's my constitutional right to say anything I want, freedom of speech, and yell fire.
Okay.
That puts people at a public safety risk. So there's a balance. I trust the judge in this case, whoever he or she is, that they made the right decision. Not only did they allow them to stay, but I understand the judge also limited them and said there'd be no more new encampments on the State House grounds. So we don't know enough about the case for me to really give you a legal analysis. I'm not afraid to, if you want to give me a brief and read it and give you an opinion, but I'm not a party to the suit.
I understand, but people watching at home know that tents don't belong in the State House. You don't belong defecating over the rail. You don't belong there at night. It's almost like a health crisis. Leader Blazejewski, you want to address this? You're also an attorney. What do you think of this legal theory that anybody can go up there and stay as long as you want and have a permanent protest? Because then this opens up to any group that wants a protest. How about if the truckers want to roll an 18-wheeler and leave it parked over there? Where does it end?
I'm not familiar with the case. The decision literally just happened. Just like the speaker said, we're not going to second guess a judge who has looked at it, who has been briefed by the parties, who has listened to the legal theories. So we're going to let that process play it out, as we often do. And we're the legislature, we're not the judiciary.
I will take, the truckers have been there before. We were doing the tolls. They were driving around the State House honking the horns for hours on end.
They didn't park the car on the tarmac and go.
But everybody comes to State House. We have debates on firearms and guns, and there's lots of protests there. That we have people in the State House all the time with singing songs, playing music. It's a form of protest. It's the State House doesn't belong to me or you. It belongs to everybody of Rhode Island. They have a right to be there, Gene.
Nobody understands that more than me. Protest is an honored tradition here. By the way, I want to tell you, not every State House allows people to go right in and protest in the rotunda. That's a Rhode Island thing.
It's a
There's
great
other
thing.
State Houses you can't get in there. You scream and yell outside. Here you can go right in. But you understand that that's a little different, the gun protests and everything else, than what we have now. This is a permanent encampment.
I think it's temporary. And I think the judge's order, whoever he or she is a temporary order. It's not only a restraining order. It's only lasts for 10 days, and then there'll be another hearing as well.
Speaker, take the last word on this, Leader Blazejewski.
Yeah, it's about safety. We want to find long-term solutions here. We agree that encampment on the State House grounds is not a long-term solution. We need to find those solutions, and we're going to keep working, we as a society and the legislature, to provide the resources that the administration needs to solve this problem.
You know, well, let me just go a minute longer here, because it's very interesting. You mentioned Warwick. This is your community that's done its part. You're right. They're in the Motel 6 on Jefferson Boulevard.
And there's another location, Metro Center.
I'll get to that. Motel 6, that's a perfect location. You know why? There's no homes around it. There's no neighborhood that it impacts. It's right on the highway. And the other families are in the hotel, the Old Suite Hotel, in the office park. Also an area where there's no neighborhood. Now, in the Nilo last year, they put the homeless in there. That millions of dollars it cost. And the neighborhood was very, very upset, Pontiac Village, because the man across the street said, I didn't bargain for a homeless shelter. What happened to there?
Well, they left it. It was
Yeah.
a short-term, temporary solution. I think the people were upset for a couple of reasons, but they didn't get notice. This time, Mayor Picozzi did, in fact, get notice.
Right.
So I think it's about better communication, and I think that they probably made a mistake last year with going there without giving notice to the local host community. They learned from that. They gave notice this year in Warwick, and the community seems to have responded accordingly.
And you know what the homeless advocates who are remaining up there today, as we speak, they're demanding hotel rooms. Was it a mistake to put the homeless in the Nilo? It's a nice setup. It's a nice place. Cable TV, room service. It's very nice. They seem to want that again.
Well, wait a minute. First of all, you make it sound like that the state forced these on the Nilo. The Nilo accepted them, and they were paid for
Well,
them.
why wouldn't they?
Of
They
course.
did millions of dollars.
Of
In an
course.
off season,
Yeah.
the Nilo took your millions through Crossroads, and the homeless went there, and it's a very nice setup.
Yeah.
They're demanding that today. Was that a mistake to go to hotels versus shelters?
I don't believe it was a mistake. I think you need, when you're in a crisis situation, in this emergency situation, you have to look at all alternatives, and you have to go where the best available option is. So, no, it was not a mistake.
We don't have the shelter beds, so we have hotel rooms, so I guess that's it.
I don't know. My understanding is that they're working very diligently. There are some homeless places that they can go, some shelters, but there's just not enough capacity, and there's really not enough of a delivery system to get to the people that need to be there in those particular shelters.
Let me just bottom line this and wrap this and be fair to everybody. By the way, it's good to have a spirited discussion on this. I think it's what people want. They're watching the news. They want to hear from the people
That's
running
why I
it.
come on your show.
Okay,
It's always
good.
going to be. It's always a spirited discussion when you sit down with the anchor man.
The two of you say we write the checks, we fund the emergency programs, and we funded them, and we gave the money to the governor to execute. You're a little hesitant to lay out the housing secretary, Saul.
It's an ongoing situation. He's been there less than a year. I want to have at least a year of review, and then we'll decide it. But no, am I disappointed that people are at the State House? Yes. Am I disappointed that we have a homeless problem? Yes. Can we do better in Rhode Island? Absolutely yes. But I'm hesitant to criticize somebody when I don't know all the facts. And I'm also hesitant to criticize somebody without having them sit there and talk to me and explain why. I need to know all the facts. I'm not afraid to criticize. I'll criticize you, the media.
That's okay. I could take it.
I don't have a problem doing that. But to be fair, I should know all the information.
Okay. Take the last word, and then we really will go to a break here.
I agree with the speaker. We need to give the administration time to address this, but we will continue to push the administration to do more and to do more with the resources we provided.
Okay, great. We'll be right back. Let's talk about other things. We've got the soccer stadium, the Superman building, the tolls, the budget, and your priorities for the new session coming up. 10 News Conference continues. Welcome back. 10 News Conference continues with the two top men running the House. Democrats, House Speaker Joe Shekarchi, Majority Leader Chris Blazejewski. All right, let's go through it. Let's do a lightning round. The new session's coming in. We've already established that affordable housing is going to be a top priority.
It has been. It's going to continue to be.
Point noted. Now let's move on to other things, because that's not the entire piece of cake here. What's your top, beyond that, what's your other top priority?
We're going to continue the good work we've built on. I'm looking at biosciences as a possible way to look for an industry to go forward. We want to address some of the issues that we move forward on. In addition to housing, as you said, is always a big priority. And then the budget is the single biggest priority the House does every year. We'll continue to do that as we have done very well. We've done 3 budgets in the first term, and they were all balanced. As a matter of fact, we didn't raise taxes, we cut taxes.
Just quickly, this biosciences, make that very simple for me to understand. You want to attract a lab in? What do you want to do?
I want to partner with stakeholders,
Yep.
particularly hopefully Brown University. I haven't even started those discussions yet, and my counterparts in government, the Senate and the executive office, and see if we can come to some kind of a quasi-agency or some way to launch biosciences down at the 195 area.
So you think that could be a moneymaker for us?
Absolutely, for the state, and create an unbelievable industry here in Rhode Island that we don't have. It's been done very well and successfully in other parts of the country. We have everything we need here in Rhode Island to make it work. We also have done a very good job last year and continued this year to help launch the offshore wind industry throughout the United States. We funded the Key, the South Key in East Providence. We want to continue to look at ways, long-term ways to make Rhode Island a better place to live and work and raise a family.
Let's talk about the budget. You're flush with cash. How much do you have? in the bank? It changes daily, but how much we got in the bank right now, including all the COVID relief money and everything?
Here's what's important when you're looking at the budget is that, yes, we have a surplus this year, but these are one-time dollars. And we are mindful in the General Assembly, especially in the House, and the important role that we play in the budget, to make sure that we're spending one-time dollars on one-time issues. We don't want to create long-term liabilities for the state that could ultimately lead to cuts in the future that only harm the people of the state of Rhode Island. So we're very mindful of that. We're going to take a look at the numbers. We got the numbers that came in November. We'll have better numbers in May.
Okay.
And we'll look at the governor's budget, what he proposes in mid-January, and we'll go from there. But we have to be mindful that these dollars are one time that we have in this current surplus.
We also have to be mindful that everybody's got their hands out. And I mean, everybody is up there asking for money.
That's not a new thing. We had a $1 billion Opera money last year. I had $12 billion in requests, so that's not a new thing. But just as the leader said, that we have to be careful. We have expenses in the state also. We have energy costs in the state, and we also have increased expenses as well. We allocated money to build new housing, new hospital. That's going to cost more, just like everyone else. We have issues when the state is doing something. We have to pay our bills. We have our energy bills to pay. We have electricity bills to pay. We have our heating bills to pay, and our costs go up also. We're not immune from that.
Noting that you have money. We have money, and everybody's got their hands out. This doesn't involve you directly. It's kind of in the same church, maybe a different pew. Providence got their own tranche of money. All the cities and towns got their own money. You were quick to point that out. The cities and towns are flush with cash, too.
None of my good friends in the media tend to focus on that.
You told me, and I remember that.
But I don't remember you doing any stories on it.
Well, I used it on my radio show. We talked about it a lot. In fact, I'm quoting you now. You told me make sure that you know that the cities and towns got their own tranche of money. They
actually got two tranches of money. They got some in the education area, and then they got some in, I call the general revenue area as well.
And Providence gave $1.5 million to bring the Penguins back. How does that strike you? Because to me, it's like, what do the Penguins have to do with COVID? Now, I know they're going to make the case, the zoo, they didn't have enough people, and the Penguins are going to be it. But the average guy sitting at home saying, $1.5 million for the Penguins?
Well, the city of Providence is addressing its budgetary needs and taking a look at what they need to do. But I can tell you that as someone who has young children who does go to Roger Williams Zoo, it's a huge attraction. It's one of our biggest tourist attractions in the state. Yeah. Draws an enormous number of people. And that has an impact on our hospitality industry, on our restaurants. So I don't know exactly how they made that decision, but the Roger Williams Park Zoo is a huge attraction in our state.
I agree with that, but $1.5 million for the Penguins?
Well, you should
people say, come on.
Gene, respectfully, you should ask the mayor of Providence.
I did. I asked Council President Igliosi. I stand by it. It's good for economic development, and I stand by it.
We in the General Assembly have no control over that money. That's all federal money. I know that.
Yeah, you know that. Yeah,
it's all federal money. I have no control how any city and town spends that money.
I prefaced that by saying that, but in the larger sense, a lot of these things we're seeing, somebody could make the argument on whether is that really COVID relief?
Sure.
Some of these things?
I get second guessed every single day. Every decision I make at the General Assembly, there's always a group that likes it, and there's always a group that doesn't like it. I may become immune to it, but that is very common in this practice.
All right. Quickly, your priorities. He mentioned biosciences. I'm sure you share that. Anything else that's the top of your list for the new session?
Sure. So looking at the budget is always a priority, and that impacts so many parts of our lives, right? There's healthcare in there. There's education. I'm really proud here in Rhode Island that we're working to rebuild our schools. We have invested, we had a bond that passed with $250 million. The city of Providence does bonding for hundreds of millions of dollars. We have got to have schools that are warm, safe, and dry if people are expected to learn and compete in the 21st century. So supporting education and healthcare forms a big part of what we do with our budget.
You led me nicely to our next segment. Let's pick up at the beginning of the Providence schools, because the education secretary, the commissioner just said yesterday, 3 to 5 years before we get everybody back on track. That's how much we lost in the pandemic. And that's not Providence, that's everybody. Quick break, we'll be right back with the leader and the speaker. Welcome back. 10 News Conference continues with Speaker Shekarchi and Leader Blazejewski. Let's bang through a couple of issues before we have to say goodbye to the folks. Marijuana has been legalized, the money's coming in. Are you pleased with how it's gone so far?
Too early to tell. I am pleased that we have a really good marijuana law in place. I congratulate everybody who worked on it. It's become a model for other states to look at. It's been in effect for 8 days, so I'm not ready to comment about the success or not. Ask me that in about 8 months and I'll give you an answer.
Your city has a compassion center on Jefferson Boulevard, and I understand you're going to get at least one more dedicated marijuana shop on Bald Hill. So they're coming to work. What have you heard about the other communities welcoming this?
I don't know what the stat is. That's community by community. But really, this cannabis law, I think, is the best of the nation. But we need it to have time for it to roll out. As the speaker has pointed out, in other states, they're always revising their cannabis laws once they go to legal cannabis.
Colorado has been legal for over 10 years, and every single year, the Colorado legislature has tweaked the law.
Okay.
I expect there'll be some tweaks in this law this year, minor, nothing major. Those are issues that we'll address as they come. But the way this law is set up, there's going to be hopefully a cannabis commission appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate in January, and they will do the more of the regulations, and it'll be away from the General Assembly.
That'll be apart from the compassion centers, because they're selling it right now. These are for the 20-odd shops that are going to
Yes, and
come on board.
Those were all targeted certain areas, certain communities, and there's a lot more in that law as well. There's also automatic expungement.
Yeah.
It's a very comprehensive law.
Are you concerned that not everything has been tied down, that you will have more people driving impaired, that the police have nowhere to really test it? Are you concerned about that? Was this something that was pushed through without thinking that fully through?
No, I think all of that was thought through. Look, impairment is an issue, whether it's alcohol or cannabis that you need to address.
Prescription drugs.
A great point, yes, Mr. Speaker. But this is sort of where we're at, is that we know that we may have to make tweaks going forward, as the Speaker just said, and we'll look to that.
Let's talk about this stadium deal. Governor McKee got hammered on this during the campaign. Do you fully support this stadium deal in Pawtucket?
He didn't get hammered that much because he won by a good margin.
Well, I know. He got hammered, but he didn't lose the election. But you know the issue I'm getting at.
So the deal that exists right now is being done has already been approved by the General Assembly. If there's another ask out of that, I can promise you a very robust public process. But generally speaking, do I support the stadium in Pawtucket? The answer is yes. Under the way it has been structured and approved by the General Assembly, I support that for the city of Pawtucket, but for the state of Rhode Island.
Just please make a little, you share this opinion. Now, what's the second ask? If they come back and ask for another boatload, hold on a second. Is that what we're am I hearing?
We have to take a look at what the request is and whether it falls within existing programs. The current resources fall within existing programs. We'll see what the request is in the governor's budget.
You're good with the Superman building deal that was cut? They put the light back on. Wasn't that nice of them?
So the Superman building is all being done with the existing programs that already exist. There was no indirect ask to the General Assembly. All we were asked to do is authorize the city of Providence, if they wanted to increase their tax treaty from 20 years to 30 years, or 30 years to 40 years. But whatever that was, we gave the enabling legislation for the City Council of Providence to make that decision. But yes, I also support that well. That building's been vacant for over 10 years that I'm aware of. It has a direct impact on all of downtown and all of the office space downtown. I think it would be great to rehabilitate that, and I hope they can make it happen and make it real. And I want to point out about that, the overwhelming majority, if not all of the money that was, public subsidy into that building comes at the very end of the project. Okay. So if the project fails halfway through or doesn't happen, there is no public exposure. And I think if we're going to look at doing projects, that's the way we should do that. I want to congratulate and commend former Commerce Secretary Pryor, because they have come to the General Assembly 3 or 4 times, and I would not entertain those until it was structured in a way that the very minimal risk to the taxpayers of Rhode Island.
I just have 1 minute left. Very quickly, then I want to wrap you. Tolls, you support appealing the tolls, the ruling against the tolls. You think you're going to win that?
Personally, yes, I do.
And yes?
Yes.
And you're both lawyers. All right. Finally, Providence Schools, the Education Commission, I wish I had more time, 30 seconds. AIG, she just said 3 to 5 years before we get everybody back on track. Are you shocked by that? How much we lost? And again, just quickly.
Yeah. So December 15th, the House Oversight Committee will be having a hearing, and Commissioner Alfonte Green will be there. We will ask her those questions and why, in the context that she said that.
10 seconds? You're good with this upcoming action on December 15th, you said?
That's right. We've added additional oversight to the state takeover in the past General Assembly session.
I appreciate both of you coming in. Again, a good spirited discussion. We left things out, but we couldn't get to everything. We'll have you on again. Thank you, Speaker Shekarchi, Leader Blazejewski. And thanks for joining us. That's 10 News Conference. We'll see you again next week.